Hey guys, Radio Mike here. Today I want to talk all about Crash Bandicoot 4, which I've been playing so much of. I want to do a little review of it and talk about my thoughts and impressions on it. I have beaten the full game now, and I had a really good time. So we'll get straight into it, but first, if you could subscribe to my channel for more stuff on gaming, movies, TV shows, pop culture, and stuff like that, that would be awesome. Okay, so Crash Bandicoot 4 is the long-awaited fourth game in the Crash Bandicoot franchise, which seems to totally eliminate and retcon the events of Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex through to like Mind Over Mutant, all of which were mixed to negatively received games. Personally, I have a massive soft spot for Crash Twinsanity. I thought that game was actually really good, with one of the best, most apt gaming soundtracks ever made in the history of gaming. The soundtrack in that game is amazing. I know that game was a really glitchy mess when I've sort of revisited it, but I had a great time with that growing up. But Crash 4 is sort of like the true sequel to Crash, the original Crash trilogy that we've always wanted. And I had such a great time with the Insane trilogy when that came out, probably like 3 years ago now, and I 100%ed and got the platinum trophy on all of those, meaning I did all of the time trials, got all of the gems, and had such a good time. And also had a great time with Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, which I actually got on Switch, but I did all of the time trials in the races of those. I just think these games are so perfectly about having a really strong difficulty curve. Like, you really have to learn and perfect and become an expert at the mechanics of these games to 100% them, if that's what you like to do in games. And it took me so long to beat some of those original trilogy levels and to get the relics and the time trials and etc. I was really looking forward to a challenge again with Crash Bandicoot 4. I have beaten the entire story mode, and currently I'm in the process of revisiting all the levels to get all of the gems. And I guess I'll just start by saying that this is definitely what people wanted from a new Crash Bandicoot game. It is exceptionally challenging. It's got that classic Crash humor, the classic Crash gameplay, with a few new mechanics that really help sort of separate it from what's come before, but definitely feel like a natural step forward. I feel like in Crash Bandicoot Warped, instead of developing the platforming more, they went on this route where they did more like vehicle style levels, and by that I mean there was a lot of underwater levels, there was the racing levels, we also had like the levels which you rode on the backs of Pura the tiger and Polar the polar bear, which were probably the more fun ones, but I didn't necessarily like the racing ones, and the more like they weren't really platforming anymore and they kind of detracted from it, and that's how they were trying to change and refresh the gameplay back then. Whereas in this game I feel like they've done what they should have done, which is introduce new elements to the actual platforming. And the main way they do that is through these 4 new masks, which grant you 4 new powers that you gradually get exposed to throughout the game, and they gradually become more and more difficult in the way you have to use these new powers to achieve the platforming, and then eventually you start having to use 2 of the different powers very quickly in succession, and by the end of the game you're using all 4 of the different masks in succession. So the different styles, the different masks changes are the phase shift, the time slow down, the gravity swap, and the super spin, or the whatever that super spin one is called. And all of these work totally differently, totally change up the platforming in such a refreshing way. The phase shift means you're having to shift in and out different objects and jump from a platform and phase shift and make calls on timing and things like that. Really works well, enjoyed that a lot. The time stop is exactly what you think it is, really fast moving platforms. You have to slow them down, you then have a time limit that the time is slowed down, that you have to make the jump or make the thing that it wants you to make. Another really good one, the gravity swap is, that's been done in a few games before and that worked really well as well. The one that was probably the most original was the super spin, which changes the physics a lot and gives you a really strong spin. Easy to lose control of, so I didn't 100% love that one. It was probably the most challenging of all of them, but it still offered a really unique new flavor to the game, which, Crash Bandicoot Warped I didn't feel necessarily have. These really do refresh the gameplay. And other than that, you've got your pretty standard Crash platforming that mixes between like a front-facing or forward-facing 3D and a 2D plane as well. Lots and lots of fun playing this game. The gems have changed up a bit. You now get a gem for getting a certain amount of Wampa fruit in the game, as well as getting all the crates. And then there is a hidden gem, a secret gem on each level that you have to find. It's pretty hard. You unlock skins with them, which really gives you a sense of achievement that you're working towards things and constantly like refreshing the aesthetics of the game, so you can change your skins. And you can also change between Crash and Cortex, Crash and Coco, which is good. Onto Cortex, there are 3 other playable characters in the game which have their own unique styles of playing. Crash and Coco have the exact same moveset. You have Cortex, Dingodile, and Torna from an alternate universe. I will say that all 3 of these are not nearly as fun as the standard Crash gameplay. None of them feel quite as good, but I'm glad they're in there. They're a bit of variety to the standard gameplay. The weakest, I think, would be Cortex, who uses a blaster that's really hard to aim and like turns enemies into blocks, which basically become platforms. Didn't particularly love him. I just found the blasting mechanics pretty hard to use. Just got frustrated a lot when using him, but still was glad that it was there. He has a lot of comedy in his levels as well, which is good. Torna, pretty similar to Crash and Coco, except she uses a hook shot, which can take out enemies and get hidden boxes on the side. She was okay. And Dingodile, probably my favorite of the 3. He feels really heavy, bulky, has a really strong spin. There's often by design lots of boxes together in the Dingodile sections, and you feel really good just shredding through them with your spin, and a vacuum mechanic as well, which was kind of cool. The thing I don't particularly like too much about the game, particularly now when I'm trying to like 100% it, is the fact that a lot of these other characters such as Cortex and Dingodiles exist on these like alternate timeline worlds where you basically play half of the level as them and then you join back as Crash on a level in the middle of a level that you've already completed. So you kind of have to then play the second half of a level you've already completed, usually just before this, which can kind of feel a little bit repetitive, even though they mix the crates up a bit. It just feels like it's a little too dense at points, and it's kind of annoying having to do the same thing so many times, but it changes just a little bit. I wonder if I would have rather just have unique Crash levels instead of that, and I wish they had just done, and there are a few, but I wish they had just done, a full Dingodile level. Like, all the Dingodile levels are just full levels as him. You don't have to join back in with Crash, which is kind of the way they tell the story. Like, all these other characters are doing things behind the scenes that are affecting Crash and Coco's journey. But you learn those things through playing those levels. Kind of a cool story mechanic, but I'm not necessarily playing Crash Bandicoot for the story, so I didn't particularly care about it very much. And the difficulty of this game is as hard as ever. It is incredibly, incredibly difficult. Dying so many times, almost impossible to complete a level with no deaths the first time. You also get a gem, which I forgot to mention, for getting under 3 deaths on a level. Again, super, super difficult, especially if you want to do it all in one go, where you want to get all the boxes and less than 3 deaths. There is also a hidden thing, which is the perfect relic, which is where you do everything in the level, 100% run with the boxes and no deaths, which I have done a couple of, but it is incredibly hard so far. So I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a slog to 100% this one. I don't know if I'll see it through the whole way because it's already really hard and sometimes incredibly frustrating, but I had the same experience with the original trilogy of Crash games as well, so I might stick it through. Overall though, this is a really, really good game. Like, if you've been considering playing something, I really think this is a great game to play for the next few months. You can get as into it or not into it as you want. If you want to just try and beat the levels without doing all the secret stuff and getting all the boxes, that's also really fulfilling because these levels are so hard. So if you're a beginning player at the franchise, you can just pretty much go in and try and beat the levels. But if you're a bit more advanced and want the challenges, some of the crates are really hard. Like, the bonus rooms are really, really hard. So yeah, I really, really like this game. I'm really happy with it. I think it's exactly what Crash 4 always needed to be. It is exactly what the Crash Bandicoot series needed at this point in time. I would love for them to do a Crash 5 and keep innovating it, maybe add some new masks. I don't know how much more they could do. They've really used a lot, but maybe mess more with the time mechanics, such as maybe like rewinding time or creating time clones of yourself and having to do different things and hit different switches. I don't know, but a Crash 5 would be really, really cool. And I'm super, super pleased with just Crash Bandicoot being back. I think he's such a beloved character who went by the wayside for a while there. Now he's back and in full form. It might happen again where he becomes overexposed again and they don't know what to do with him. I don't see that happening because they seem to be really spacing out releases. But yeah, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, is one of the best games I've played all year and an incredibly fun and challenging platformer that I think everyone should have a go at. And it's a lot of fun whether you're shit or you're really good. So thanks for watching. Leave this video a like, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to do more videos like this as much as I can. And yeah, my name's been Radio Mike. Thanks for watching.
I hold you close the moment last I touch your skin. But I went to run my hand through your hair and I noticed you were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time, you were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time.